G'day everybody, how are you going today? It is so good to see you, and Bruce, it is so good to see you, and it's so good to see everybody out there. Now, for those that may not have seen Bruce in our last live stream together that we did with Bobby, Bruce is many things. Oops, hold it, the live stream started. Just give me a sec here, that's always annoying. I tell you, that's a trap for new players. Bruce, among many things, is a photographer, a collector of cameras, and a user of many. Like, how many different brands of cameras have you had, Bruce?
Oh, I've had every one of the major brands anyway,
Yep.
Including Ricoh, by the way.
Ricoh.
Yeah, I've still got. Ricoh made some absolute ripper cameras.
And which has been your favourite to date? I know that's a tough choice, a tough question.
Look, they each excel at what they for different things. At the time, I would say the D800E was the benchmark in photography. And although it has been surpassed since, at the time it dominated things. And for me, it was so far in front of everything else at that particular time that was the most significant of all of them. And in the last 20 years, early on, when I was young, which was a long time ago, it was the Canon F1, right? Of the film-based cameras, I felt the Canon F1 was significantly better than its Nikon counterpart in those days, but they were a minor manufacturer. They had to be better.
Now, Bruce, we're here today to talk about many things, but we're going to start talking about the new Leica, because you've actually owned a number of Leicas. You have a large collection of lenses. I would call you a Leica expert. And not only do you push beyond the Leica, but you like to mount your Leica lenses on other cameras. We will talk about all of that, but first I'm going to say hi to Joe and hi to Roy and Mozman and Mr. Seth Miranda. We've got Costas, J-Rod, J-Blue, and Mookie, Paul. Welcome to you all. Please ask Bruce any questions about printing, because Bruce runs a business selling fine art papers, fine art canvas, and now moving into framing and other areas. So Bruce is an expert in all those sort of things as well. So he's got both ends of the photographic world covered. So if you have any questions about Leicas or printing, pop them in the comments with a QQQ. Also, we are absolutely happy to ask questions about anything photography related, because I would say between us, we probably have 75 plus years of experience in the printing and in the photographic worlds. Bruce, what is your initial reactions to the new Leica M EV1, I think it's called. Is that right?
Massively disappointed.
Oh, okay. Tell us why. Tell the viewers why over here on your camera there.
Focus aids. I do not see that camera does anything substantially more than, and considerably less than, a stock standard M11 with an optional EVF sitting on the top. To focus the camera, you have to punch in, you have to use peaking, and by the time you do, your subject has gone or it's out of focus.
So Bruce, does this mean that you've got show the viewers what this is here?
Well,
and I'll try and get funky with our third camera, because we're trying to do some extra cool stuff, but we're getting a close-up shot here of there it is.
Well, this is a standard 2022 M11, and this is a real deal. And for those of you who can see the photograph on the right here, it came out of this camera on the Mediterranean coast 4 weeks ago. It used the rangefinder. I basically drove over a period of 3 weeks from Barcelona to Madrid. I don't know how many thousand photos came out of this camera, and many of them in terrible darkness for cathedrals. Every one of them was used was a rangefinder, and I'm 65 years old. It missed 0 pictures out of focus. 0.
Now, the other thing that I love about this camera, and you just pulled it off, but pop it back on there to show people what's going on here. So Leica already had a solution when it came to EVs, and that is exactly the sort of solution that we might want to see for the ZR. But in the case of, and now this is the original M11. This is not a P, it's not a Safari, it's not a mono, although I think you've got a mono, don't you, Bruce?
I did have a mono, yes.
Yes.
And I'm looking forward to getting that back.
Yeah.
But the EVF that came with the M11 is unchanged for all the M11s, other than, of course, the EV1, which actually has the EVF built in. But the issue is that if you use these EVFs, and for most purposes, for what Leicas are used for, you do not need them. But if you use certain long lenses, wide lenses and other things like that, yes, you do use them. This was a big change from earlier Leica cameras, in the sense that it's a 3.7 million dot display.
Yeah.
Whereas, and the EV1, of course, has the better 5 million dot display that you see on the Q and the SL and all the rest. But the fact of the matter is that the focusing system in both of these is exactly the same.
Right.
It's peaking and punch-in. And since Leica's famous for fast lenses, if your model is close by, they only have to breathe and it's out of focus.
J Rod's made an interesting point, Bruce. He says Leica does make a good point about the new EV1. If you have trouble with your eyes, the EV1 is easier than the M11 to focus. How do you feel about that?
It's not true. If you look at the size of the VideoFlex, you will see that it has the same diopter adjustment right here.
Yeah, there it is there.
Now, I'm 65 years old.
Yeah.
And one of my eyes isn't terribly good, and I can still use a coincidence rangefinder.
Yep.
However, the EVF in this camera, while not as good as the EV1, there is no recorded incidents, and you'll see this at DP Review and other things like that. You'll see their admission. There is nothing you can do with an EV1 that you actually can't do with this. But there's a lot of things you can do with a rangefinder that you can't do with an EV1. The first thing is, these cameras take 3 seconds to boot up.
Right.
Because their electronics is nowhere near as good as a Sony or a Nikon. So for 3 seconds, their autofocus or their manual focus systems are not operative at all. But the rangefinder is operative with the camera off.
Yeah.
And so therefore you can lift it to your eye, do the focus, and you will beat the EV1 or this every time.
So Bruce, it sounds like the EV1 is not for you.
What we had hoped,
Yes,
and
tell us for that.
what we had hoped, and all the pictures had indicated for 9 months that there would be some other type of focused electronic range finding system in this camera that made it faster and easier to focus, and therefore superior to sticking a Leica lens on a Sony or a Nikon. But what we discovered is that it doesn't exist.
Yep.
And that's the letdown here. Not the camera itself,
Yep.
but the fact that there is no easy focusing system.
So do you think there's a chance we might see, see some of these things come in an M12, and including perhaps IBIS and so on?
Well, the M11 was a massive step forward for Leica. It really was. For the first time for almost 15 years, we finally had the world's best sensor melded to what is the most expensive camera of its type, and went USB-C. The viewfinder, the rangefinder is considerably better than a lot of earlier models. There's a whole lot of changes that this camera made, and the problem is it's very difficult to really improve that in a short period of time. And what we found is that we thought, looking at particularly Nikon's example of how it did manual focus lenses on an AF camera, we were hoping that Leica could do something of the same manner, but it isn't there.
Well, we'll get to talking about Nikon and their manual, the way they handle manual lenses and firmware and so on. So Bruce, where do you think the new M EV1 fits in then? The Leica, like, is it a crossover camera? Do you think it's trying to entice people who've never used a rangefinder? What do you think's going on there
Well,
from Leica?
if you look, I must admit, when I was 12, my father brought me up with a rangefinder camera.
Yep.
And although I've got every other camera under the sun, I still believe a rangefinder is one of the fastest methods of using manual focus lenses. But the truth is that used examples of this camera are available in many cases considerably cheaper than the EV1. And I can guarantee if you go out and buy an M11 Safari, particularly the Safari or the black version today, in 10 years' time, one of them's going to be wanted with a resale position, particularly if you have the additional EVF, and the other one, I think, is going to suffer a massive depreciation because of the limiting nature.
Interesting. And you don't think there's a potential for it to attract new audiences?
No,
because
this exists, and despite the fact that on paper it would be suggesting that the resolution of this is inferior to the other thing, and it is. If you look at all the reviews, you will not see one of them that actually says, I got a picture with the new model that I couldn't get by doing that.
It's a good point that resolutions of EVFs don't really impact your capacity to take a shot. It's just, they've got to do something, don't they, to get people to buy new cameras so they increase the number of dots that they put in an EVF. Now, before we go on further, there's a little bit of housekeeping that I wanted to do at the start that I forgot to do. I just want to do a shout out to our dear friend Raymond Parker, who's just undergone surgery for something going on in his throat. And I know, Ray, you're in the chat, so I just want to send my thoughts, regards, and lots of love to you. Also, I do believe that Ray's book is now finished. I'm not sure if it's up on his website yet, but Ray, if you can let us know in the chat if you're still listening, if it's up on the website, you've got to go to raymondparker.com, if that's correct. Again, Ray, write that in the chat, and check out his book and maybe even get yourself one. It looks like a cracker of a book. Ray, can you let us know whether it's actually ready to ship yet or not? That'd be great. And another little bit of a shout out that I have to do is to my dear friend Joe, who is also hopefully still watching us. If you're still there, Joe, we're sending lots of love to you as well. And thank you very much. Now, please keep the QQQs coming. And there we go. Joe is still there. Good on you, Joe. Thank you for that shout out to Ray. Now, Bruce, you've integrated your Sonys and your Leicas. Tell us a little bit about how you feel, what the differences are, because essentially these two cameras here, and what we have here is the A7C-R, which is a 60 megapixel compact. I'm gonna get them in shot here on camera 3. There they are. There, beautiful. So this one here is the A7C-R. And this one here is the M11, very extraordinarily different price points, yet probably have a very, very similar sensor in them. Same megapixels, maybe some tweaks from the Leica, thinner glass and so on like that on the sensor. Any other tweaks that there might be that are in the Leica versus the Sony?
Well, the Leica mount allows very much smaller lenses. There's no doubt about that without changing the cover glass. And the example here is when I first started buying Leicas, you had to buy Leica lenses for them. And majority of my lenses, like this, are Summilux, right?
Yep.
Genuine item. And, still resells well after many years. But what's happened in the last 10 years is the rise of Voigtlander. And Voigtlander, aren't just copying Leica glass. They're making world-class glass. that does things. For instance, look at the size of this Ultron 2. This is the latest Ultron. Now, this took this photograph.
Now, what is that?
This is a Voigtlander 28mm f2 Ultron with obviously a filter on the top of it. So if we take the filter off, we can see, look how small this lens is.
It is so tiny.
Now, this is f2
Yep.
and a 28mm.
Yep.
Now, there is the Ultron, which is supposedly higher quality, but the problem is it's much larger. And being larger, it tends to block the rangefinder view more.
Gotcha.
And that's the issue with rangefinders,
Yep.
is that they block the view. But the Voigtlander is absolutely tiny. Now, in Australian dollars, this lens, which you can pick it up, it has no real compromises. Even at f2, you struggle to find any aberrations in a 1.5 metre print. You may find a little bit of CA in the corners, which is a one-click fix. This lens is between 7 and 15 times less expensive than its Leica cousin, depending on how you look at it. And while I've got plenty of Leica lenses and I love them one way or another, the point is that the mount allows you very inexpensive entry into the system for very high class. And if you think this is too much, the Chinese are making fantastic lenses for even cheaper.
And how much would that lens be in Australia and the US?
It's a little over $1,000 Australian dollars with GST. So in the US, it's what, 500 or 600?
And what's the Leica equivalent going to cost you?
Well, let's have a look. Look up the Summicron. Look up the Summicron 28mm current version.
Okay, give me a second and I'll do that.
Now, I mean, this is coming from a Summicron owner of multiple ones as well.
It's a 28mm. Sorry, what was the f-stops?
2.
F2. It's $9,000.
Oh, bargain. 9 times. Right? 9 times.
Yeah.
And I kid you not, right? Now, there's sometimes you need a Leica lens. There's no doubt about it. But when I bought into the system, you had to have one. I mean, there wasn't really other choices.
There were no choices, yeah.
But now there are, and the quality is there. Then the Ultron version of this is bettered by nobody.
Yeah, look, it's very cool. It's very cool. So tell us about the journey between Sony and like, why is it that you've decided to put extraordinarily expensive Leica and other lenses onto an ACR?
Well, I mean, clearly, the problem with the M11 was the existence of the ACR, right? It's a camera we never thought Sony would ever make.
Yeah.
And when it first came out, people said, "Oh well, the EVF's only 2 point something or other million pixels or whatever." And these were people who read specs and didn't actually take photographs or whatever.
Yeah.
The problem with this particular camera is it's just too good.
Yeah.
I mean, it really is too good, right?
And why? And what can it do that the Leica can't do?
Well, for a start, it has IBIS.
Yeah.
Now, Leica came out and said IBIS is no good because you have a degradation in picture quality. It's rubbish.
Yes, that makes no sense.
It basically means the fact that they couldn't get an IBIS unit to fit inside the camera small enough so that the camera wouldn't be thicker. The M240, when it came out, was not loved because it was too thick.
Gotcha.
And yes, IBIS units and tiltable screens do make cameras thicker. And so, even so, I expect that when we get to M12, there will be an IBIS unit for this particular camera. And for the M11, as standard with the rangefinder, there's only 2 things this camera absolutely lacks. One of them is IBIS, and the second one is a better version of this EVF that has higher resolution and, instead of just tilting up, something that the EV1 cannot do, also tilts sideways, which is what the Fuji GFX does.
Yeah.
If that has happened, you don't need a tiltable screen on the back.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the issue. Now, this camera will not, even though you can connect this lens to it, it'll perform very badly in the corners.
Right.
And so therefore, while these are adaptable, they don't really work very well from roughly 20 to 50 millimetre. Without...
Oh, and that's to do with the glass thickness, is that right, Bruce?
Yeah. Now, the other thing is that if you look at the reviews, and this is why I'm starting to get, unfortunately, very critical of reviewers, because these reviewers know what they really think, but they don't want to offend the person who bought them the air ticket. And so they mute the comments. And this is what's happened. Now, what they don't tell you is that for $500 US, you can ship this camera to Kolari Vision in Canada, have its cover glass ripped out, put a thinner one in there, and then you can attach every Leica lens and get exactly the same result as the M11 does. Exactly. Now, yes, you'll have to go into the white balance in the camera and move it a little bit. But what they also don't want to tell you is that you can go to TechArt, get the TAP LM9 adapter, put it in the middle, and autofocus this manual focus lens, something you cannot do on any Leica. And that's what we wanted for this new Leica to do, to integrate some of these new features rather than just giving us what the old camera had. And let us hope that the M12 has that.
Now, we've got a comment, I'm done with Chinese lenses. Customer support is a nightmare, and God forbid you need to service the lens and need to ship it to China.
Sure, but a Voigtlander is not Chinese, is it?
No.
No, it's Japanese, and it's extremely high quality to the point you can eat your dinner off them. and they've got a worldwide dealer network in all relevant Western countries.
Yeah, that's cool. Does it say made in Japan? Do you think it's actually made in Japan?
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Yes,
Cool.
it is.
It's the real deal then.
And not only that, another interesting issue is that some of the Voigtlander lenses don't actually come with lens hoods. And one of the reasons for that is with Leica, a lens hood is actually a bad thing because it sticks into the rangefinder. But there's a hell of a lot of manufacturers out there that produce interesting lens hoods like these, which, when fitted, don't foul the rangefinder, are very small, and are actually impact resistant because they're solid metal.
Well, that's very cool.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Bruce, what other show and tell have you got for us here today?
Well, I mean, for Leicas, I mean, so in a future episode, what we will do is we'll show one of these Leica lenses sitting on a modified version of this with a TechArt adapter. But even without the modification, the Leica 75, 90, and 135s work perfectly well on this particular camera. So here we have a Leica 135 APO.
Wow.
Right? The genuine deal. And I just want to say is that I'm not a reviewer. I actually own them.
Yeah, right? and that would be 10 grand or something.
I hate to think.
Yeah, okay.
Right, but actually the older versions of this, because they've been made down into the 1960s, are actually not too expensive.
What's the f-stop on that?
Oh, 3.4.
Yep.
Now, actually, this is a very interesting lens for use on Sony, Nikon, and other things, because it's one of the smallest 135s that you can possibly buy.
Absolutely, it's tiny compared to the planner.
That's right, and so this is why I keep it, and I use it on all sorts of cameras simply because of its small size.
Yeah,
and it's not exactly bad quality, and most of them, of course, have lens hoods that are built into them one way or another. Now,
it looks to be around $7,000 or something.
Oh, it's cheap then, because it's an APO.
It's a bargain.
It's a bargain, right? Yeah. I would think, because of the rangefinder, I would think very few people would actually buy one of these.
Right.
By the way, I've also heard a lot of rubbish on the forums to say you can't focus a 90 or a 135 millimeter with a rangefinder. It's just not true, right?
Here we go.
Right?
I like it. What's this little thing?
It's just not true. because they neglect these little things
Just hold it a little bit
called
lower.
focusing magnifiers.
Just go pop it down on the table.
That's right.
There it is there. Okay.
Which sit in the back of the M11, and they magnify the focusing patch such that in most cases focusing a 135 is pretty damn easy.
So sorry, that screws into the back of the camera.
That screws into the back
Can you show us how that works?
Yeah, it screws into the back of these.
Ah,
now this particular one here was made for the original M9 digital.
So it's a teleconverter for your eyepiece.
That's exactly right. And they come
cool.
in 1.25 and 1.4s.
Yeah, great.
1.25s are generally enough. And the standard rangefinder, as you find today, is good enough to actually focus a 75mm lens. You shouldn't have any problem with that. But the 90 and the 135 do have issues, particularly close in. The 90 f2, very close in, is very, very difficult and really requires the Tech Art adapter.
Right. Now I have a question that might be more for you than for me, which is, this is from Paul. Hi, Paul. How are you, Paul? Great to have you here. And please, any QQQs. We will answer questions about Nikon and Sony and any other brands as well, because between the two of us, we've used a bit of everything. The question is, so is the glass removal that you were talking
Cover
about
glass removal, yeah.
like Astro modding the camera? I did that to my D850.
Yes, look, it's done by the same people usually, right? I mean, you've got a choice of infrared, Astro mods, all these things, right? But Kolari seem to have a mortgage actually on the Leica cover glass or the ultra thin conversions, because there are people here in Australia who do these things and we can't get hold of the shot glass necessary to do the job. Only Kolari has that.
Yeah, so what Roy is explaining here for us is in front of the Sony sensor is a protective piece of glass that gets replaced by a thinner piece.
That's correct.
Yeah.
That's absolutely correct. And, you know, there used to be a lot of stuff about the magic of Leicas having, you know, pixels that are lenses, you know, placed inward at the sides and all the rest like that. And in previous versions of the non-Sony sensors, yes, that was probably the case. But the truth is that the only real difference that I see is the cover glass and the fact that the PDAF points, which actually are here, are not operative here. And that's one of the things that we were really hoping for. We were hoping for the fact that that the PDAF points would be operative in the camera, and there'd be some sort of adapter to allow this type of autofocus.
Yeah, well, that's cool. I just wanted to say hi to Jason, who joined us live 2 weeks ago. Got to get him back soon to talk about the ZR. And Jason, I just wanted to say, and to everybody, that this is the ZR here being used as our C cam. So we've got the wide camera here is a Z9. Bruce's close-up is the Z6 III, and then camera 3 here is the ZR with the cage, with the full-size HDMI. I'm loving it. More coming on that soon. So yeah, the cover glass conversions are very cool. What else have you got to show us? You wanted to talk about some of the bags and things that you used, didn't you, Bruce?
Yeah. I mean, look, I'm fortunate in the sense that I choose the camera that's best for the job, and usually that's a medium format digital nowadays. But the truth of the matter is that this was a little bit of work and mostly a holiday. And I have to say, on a holiday, photographers, well, for me, I use a Leica, I have to say.
Yeah.
I do, because I'm not in a hurry. I don't want it to be heavy. And above all else, I don't want it to look like a camera bag. So, this is all that's needed.
Thump. What's in your bag there?
Well, I'll tell you what.
Some more expensive lenses. I love it.
This is all you need.
This is all you need for your traveling kit.
2.5 litre bag.
Yep.
That's it.
Yep.
You don't need an EVF at all.
Yep.
Because a rangefinder works, and Leicas work really well when you only have a couple of lenses. A 28mm was not so popular for Sony or even Nikon. For Sony, for instance, hasn't had a new proper 28mm for ever since they started And what I've actually got the Sony 28mm, and that's best not even spoken of. Not even spoken of.
How old is that Sony 28?
Oh, it's one of the originals, the 28f2.
So it came with the 35 and the 50, or the
50,
50, the 55.
A little bit after that.
Yeah,
I'll give it to you if you review if you want.
Sure.
It's the maximum distortion possible, I think, for a 28mm.
Well, that was what the selling point was, probably.
Probably, yeah. Probably.
We've got the max, but you know, in camera distortion correction.
Yeah, and let me tell you, at f2, that gives you fuzzy corners, etc. Right? I mean, when you need almost no correction for one of these, one way or another. So where were we? So
talking about your bag and what's in your bag.
So on your holiday.
Yeah, on your holiday. Here we go.
This is a 50mm genuine Leica chrome Summilux.
Whoops!
Oh.
I didn't lock that off, did I? Yeah, I have now.
So I want to dispatch all the people out there who say, "Oh yeah, but you only buy cheap Voigtlander lenses and all the rest." No, I buy what I like, and the reason is that this Summilux was originally came out as a formula for film cameras in the early 2000s. It's been updated recently. Effectively, its focus is a little closer, something you do not have to do if you put it on a Tech Art adapter. It is a floating element design, so you have to be careful of that. Now, I've seen so many reviews of this lens by people who don't actually use Leicas, and they say, oh, it's got terrible resolution in the corners and all the rest, etc. like that. It's another rubbish thing, right? Yep. What this lens is, it has beautiful portraiture and character.
And how many pieces of glass would be in that lens anyway?
I don't know. Somebody needs to look it up.
Okay.
Right?
I mean, it might be just like...
Pick it up, Matt.
It's probably 7 or something. Oh, it's heavy.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, that is very, very heavy. Whoa. I mean, is that like half a kilo?
Oh, somebody needs to look it up, right?
What is it? Let me have a look
at it. Oh,
no,
it'll be about 400 or something.
Oh, that's the Leica. That's
a genuine Leica lens, right?
This is a...
And you find it's also genuine Leica filters too.
This is a 51.4 Summilux. Okay, let me look that up.
It's a Summilux, right?
The
version 2 is now available. It looks pretty much the same.
Yep.
The Summilux is a lens where you're essentially doing portraiture at 50mm. Now, I know people use portraiture and have come to use portraiture at longer focal lengths, and I do as well. But the truth is that often produces more compression than you actually need, particularly with people with normal sized noses. The Summilux is one of the most beautiful mid-range portraiture lenses that you can ever buy.
Is that at the ASPH?
Yes, it's an ASPH. Pre-ASPH will be cheaper, and a lot of people like the character of these things. So, I mean, in this particular lens, exposing it at f1.4 to f2 is roughly all you do. And if your corners aren't so beautifully tack sharp or whatever, well, you didn't really want them to be anyway, did you?
No.
The centre certainly is. You can the centre is razor.
That's cool. It's saying depending on the colour, it can be between 350 and 450 grams. So there you go.
Yeah. This is actually brass underneath this one, and that's actually heavier. Right now, the thing is, we've come to believe with the CR, which is that lighter is better. And the CR is a very light camera to the point where often most people run the CR with a grip to make it bigger and heavier, etc. Matt certainly would. If you look at Matt's hands, he can't use this camera because, you know, even I can't.
I've got big hands.
You know, I didn't bring the adapter with it. One of the reasons in Leica land for using the heavier lenses and the brass and the chrome bodies is to add extra weight. The reason you add extra weight is because these cameras don't have IBIS.
Yes, makes them more stable.
And the truth of the matter is that if you hold this camera out on its straps or whatever, being slightly heavier, I've found helps a lot.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So you can expose, even with a 60 megapixel sensor, you can expose in a 50mm lens. You don't have to use a 60th of a second. You can be good enough, you can go one stop or so below that, and your recovery rate will be quite good.
Very good. Now, everybody, don't forget to give us a like, of course. That helps the video get out there if you feel so inclined. Now, have you told us what that bag is about, Bruce?
Well, the other thing...
Before we move on to our next topic, unless anyone's got anything else or you've got anything else you want to say about...
No, other than that, as I said, these small bags you'll notice that to get them undone, thieves cannot do that.
Oh, right.
And they switch sidewards.
Oh.
And they're just big enough for a Leica body, a 28 and a 50mm lens, a few filters and a battery. And that's really all you need. Yes, longer focal lengths, sure, but you've got a 60 megapixel sensor in here. And so therefore cropping is relatively simple to the longer focal lengths. The traditional bag for the Leica is the Billingham, which is an example here. This is a 20-year-old Billingham bag. It's made in England. It is a fishing bag, and you generally find these around Western countries or whatever. There's been Rock and Roll and other people like that have made their own leather versions and things like that. But the traditional bag typically was the Billingham, etc. This is basically made to fit a camera body and at least 3 lenses. And the way you fit the lenses in is one of these. You see?
Oh.
Right?
It joins them together. Sorry,
That's
let me
right.
just change camera.
It joins them together. So here, with Leicas, you have to pick your base focal length. So if you pick 35mm as a base focal length, it's traditional to then go to the wide end, which is 21mm, and the long end, which is 75mm. And the most interesting thing is that all of these lenses have a single 46mm thread, so you've only got to take a couple of filters and that's it. And see, look how small that is.
How do they, can you show us how the lenses separate?
Oh, certainly.
Oh, there's just, yeah. Also, yeah, okay, so it's just a mount.
That's right.
Very simple.
It's just a mount. And this, and for instance, this, this, by the way, is one of the cheapest Leica lenses out, which is the 75mm f2.5. You'll see the f2.4 version, which is later. They are exactly the same. Leica, there is no difference, right? You'll find these things are reasonably inexpensive, but don't tell that this lens, don't tell the lens that it's a second-rate lens, because I'll tell you what, if you look at the lovely portraits that it makes, particularly close up, and 75mm can be focused on the rangefinder relatively easily. The other thing this works is that this works superbly well on unmodified Sonys and Nikons. I've tried them on both. You'll see that the little, we're talking about here for stitching. One of the nicest things with 75mm is to put them on the side, rotate them, and then stitch things up. And you need to understand where your nodal points are.
I don't even know what, oh, you mean image stitching?
Yeah,
sorry,
that's right.
Yeah, no, I thought you were doing some other, like a cross stitch or...
No, that's right. That's right, because you got to remember that originally Leicas had really poor resolution in their sensors. Now I've tried to put this together and I put it in the wrong place. There you go. The 21mm, which, this one's, gee, it's very tight for some reason.
That's okay. This is what live TV is all about.
That's right. The 21mm ASPH, I mean, look at the size of that. Just look at the size of that for a 21mm wide, and think about how big it is, and think about how big it is in, say, SLR terms, which is what have been the competitor for this sort of thing.
Yeah.
And that's just it.
And sorry, what is it? A 20...
21.
21, right. Yeah.
And they're all the same filter size. So that's the attraction of the Leicas. In order to, you know, this, when you look at the size of the entire kit, and you look at the size, and you look at the fact that, you know, some of these lenses are 20 plus years old, more. I've got ones that's 40. They're still made. They're not out of date. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's cool. All right. Well, shall we move on to some other topics, Bruce?
I think we've done this to death.
No worries. So the next thing I wanted to talk about was firmware. So all camera companies, Bruce, they do like to play around with the idea of firmware. And strangely, just before we went on air, I noticed that the A9 III and the A1 II have just had firmware 4. And the A12's only been in the market for like 9 months or a year or something. Isn't it? Or have I lost track of the years?
Yeah, well, actually, well, you know when things go 1 year old with Sony because you typically see the price drop.
Right.
Although they're trying to keep the A1 series high because it's the, you know, it's because of the top of the range. Yeah, look, there's a number of lenses which the firmware addresses and things like that.
So to me, the idea of calling it a 4.0, which we would consider a major firmware update, and yet it's really just a compatibility update.
Oh,
Look, I haven't looked at it, but the fact that we're talking 4.00 after less than a year since it's been shipping.
Yeah, but you see, I actually see this as a good thing, because what's happened here is that, I mean, Sony, unfortunately, has been pilloried for many years for its lack of firmware updates. And as a Sony user, I got to tell you, that is absolutely true. But they listened, and they're starting to accelerate that process, knowing that they're losing market share. And in other words, what we think on these forums ultimately gets through.
I understand, but it's not a firmware update like we get with the Z9. Or what I wanted to talk about today was the new firmware update for the ZF, which is 2 years in the market. It's just got 3.00 major firmware update. And I wanted to talk to you not only about the manual capacity and the focus peaking that we've now got, because you're a big fan of how Nikon's doing manual focus lenses.
There's nobody better.
So we'll talk about that, but I also wanted to talk about the idea of adding grain. But let's talk about focus and how you feel about the way that they do focus for manual lenses.
I mean, Nikon's the leader in integrating manual focus lenses and giving them eye autofocus, face autofocus. There's no question about its ability to do that. And in other words, it's actually made a focus aid. The thing that the Leica camera said it did, but actually didn't do. And so, by the way, if you want to put your Leica lenses on something else, if you put them on a Nikon, you'll find that they perform slightly better than they do on a Sony.
And why is that?
Because the cover glass is thinner.
Out of the box, so you don't have to change your cover glass?
Oh, yeah, look, there is, by the way, the same company offers Nikon changes as well.
Right.
But
okay,
it is reportedly slightly better. But yes, I mean, there's no question that Nikon has been on the front foot for real firmware upgrades that gave function rather than just fixes and compatibility. No question about it.
And I'd like to ask the viewers, what else would they like to see and how are they feeling about firmware? And we will touch on the Z9 a little bit later. So how do you like the idea of they've in the ZF, and I suspect they will roll it out to other cameras, they've actually given us film grain.
I know. It's
a funny one, isn't it?
Well, but you think about the ZF's market, a lot of those people don't want to go to use Photoshop and then use real film grain plugins, by the way, real ones that actually come from scanned film and all the rest. They're actually quite expensive sometimes.
Yeah.
Like if you want one of the motion picture versions, you'll have to have a subscription and all the rest. So I haven't actually used that particular firmware on the Nikon, but I see no reason. If somebody bought a ZF, which is sort of a middle of the road camera.
Yeah, and aimed at the sort of probably the Fuji kind of and general enthusiast and vintage market. It makes perfect sense to me, and I've actually played with it and having shot film for the first 20 years of using cameras, it actually looks
I remember.
It looks a lot like film grain. And the other thing that they've done is every time you take another photo, the grain's different. So they're randomizing that grain. And you do have 18 different settings. So there's six settings of intensity of grain and 3 settings of size. So 18 times, I don't know, a trillion different options when it comes to the photos and where the pixels are moving. You've got basically endless grain.
Yeah, actually, one of the things that I wanted to do in the future is to test that. I would actually like that on a Z8 and a Z9.
Yes.
Right? And I'd like to test that with an enlargement like this.
Yes.
To see how it actually goes.
Yes.
Yeah, and I really would like to do that because, I do these enlargements, many times a day. And so, I'd like to test that. But yeah, why not, right?
Yeah. That's a beautiful print, by the way. We haven't really looked at this print. Let me move.
But the point is, the point is that, despite what I've said about Leica, if you stay within its performance parameters, it's very hard to get a better image off anything else.
Yeah, and especially at the size.
That's right. I mean, it's not bettered by anything, even the medium format cameras. And remember, I use them by default, right? The Leica would be able to mix it with the GFX anywhere. The difference between the two is actually the GFX's 4:3 format is a bit more useful than 35mm.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, you've got both cameras, so you know exactly how they perform.
Yeah, I do. The other thing that the Leica has is the most beautiful menu system on the planet Earth.
Right.
Can be competed with Hasselblad. It is possible Germans can design beautiful interfaces, but they can't make firmware that doesn't break.
Yes. Well, before we go back to talking about the Nikon firmware, I just want to share the fact that Bruce and I were both in Europe at the same time, and Bruce sent me some pictures of where the exposure was just randomly changing on his Leica. So he'd be shooting at 100 ISO at 500th of a second at f8, and then suddenly you'd be at 400 ISO, and then 800 ISO, and then it would go back all by itself. And these things were completely overexposed. So there's something weird going on with
it's the firmware.
Leica's firmware.
It's a firmware. Just you look it up on the internet. M11 and auto exposure and overexposure with that.
Yep.
Even with the latest firmware, I haven't tested, but for the previous to the latest, it doesn't happen very often, not at all, right? But you cannot do this with a Leica camera. If you have an M11D, or in this case, which is an Oberwerth case, which has a magnetic back, you can't do this because you actually have to have a look at every frame to make sure.
And that's firmware. And
firmware.
And like, I've never heard anybody talk about it, but is this common?
Yes. In fact...
So why don't people talk about it? What do you think
they
that
do.
is?
There's plenty of them on the internet.
Forums, but why not? Why have I never seen a Leica YouTuber talk about it?
Well...
Maybe they don't shoot them enough for it to happen?
I mean, I can't tar everybody with the same brush.
No, you can't.
and I wouldn't do that. But I'm sorry, but reading YouTube, you got to understand, these people will lose their jobs if they say something bad, right? And many of them get a camera for a day or 2 days, and they hand it back, right?
Yeah.
And they don't actually use them. And how many of them actually go and do this on a daily basis, where we actually have a look? I mean, I have a look at the corners of the lens, and this is a small print, right? Yeah. So that's the thing you have to ask. Are they real users one way or another? Yep. And the other problem is people who don't print, who just look at images on a screen where you've got no relativity one way or another. You've got to actually print damn stuff to have a look to see whether these things are real. But there are some that are much more independent than others, though. And you can really see that in their reviews. Yeah,
cool. Joe has said, Nikon are indeed the best with manual focus lenses. Matt, you know my story with manual lenses, 24, 55, 135, 50-plus-year-old lenses working better today than they ever have because of the Nikon firmware. And yes, so...
No questions.
I would go out with my whatever, Z6II or Z8 or something, and Joe would come out with his Z6. So the original Z6, which still works magnificently, got one of the best 24 megapixel sensors in it that you can get. It's very similar to the one in the Z5 II and in the ZF. And Joe's happily focusing by magnifying. Both Joe and I don't really use focus peaking. We prefer to just magnify the pixels. And Joe is getting superb results out of these lenses that he's hand-picked largely from Japan. So he gets them from Japan on eBay and imports them. Maybe I think the 55 1.2 came from here in Melbourne.
You mean the original F lenses? Because I've got a few of them as well.
Yes, yeah. And he's just had a ball with them. So, yes.
From Map Camera or whatever, because because as I said, Japanese import of some of the older Nikkors. I mean, I got a couple from Japan, and they look like they were made yesterday. Yeah,
I mean, it looks like they've probably got one that's been used for 3 months, and then it's sat in the shop for
absolutely
for 20 years or whatever. CSC Photo says firmware on the Z8 and Z9. I'd like the ability to choose raw resolution size. like you.
Yeah, like the Leica does.
Yeah, but didn't we have that on like the D800? Didn't we have RAW, small, medium, and large? Because he says here, and RAW in older models. I'm pretty sure we had that on the DSLR cameras.
I don't think I ever used it. Like, for instance...
Yeah, I didn't use it, but I'm pretty sure it was there.
I mean, both of these cameras have that, and I think I turned it on once to test it, and that was it.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's interesting, and I don't think I would probably use it. Like, I did a client shoot last night, and I was flipping between DX and full frame on the Z9, and so you're already getting a reduced file by going to DX. I don't actually know how they would handle if you went to DX, but you're shooting. Do you like if it was able to go? Oh, you're in DX, so you don't want small anymore. If it was able to do that for me, then I might think about using it, because my client doesn't really need 45 megapixel files.
Oh, that's true.
20 megapixels is enough.
We're going to have to try that on the Nikons, but on the Sonys, if you ask for the lower resolution and then you switch to APS-C, it doesn't lower it any further. It gives you the same answer, 2626.
Yeah, great. Well, that's what I would like to see. So, yeah, look, it's interesting that they haven't bothered to do that yet with XPEED 7. I suppose they have data around how many people use it, and everything takes programming time, and they've got to pick their battles as to, do people want bird detect quicker than they want small, medium, large RAWs? Because I would think that it should come eventually at some point, but it's just not high on the development list.
Yeah,
I mean, you're a programmer in your other life, software. Can we have a bit of a conversation about how complicated it would be to add features to firmware that weren't in it?
Well, one of the things that we need to discuss here, the problem with cameras is that essentially we're not using an industry standard operating system. Particularly importantly, the important issue is, how long can all these cameras go on without being Android? Now, you will see a discussion of that. The Northrops did a discussion of that over a year or something, and I would like you to refer you to that article. But I also believe that this is the case. Like a lot of televisions, going to an industry standard operating system would speed up firmware development time considerably, but at the expense of probably performance.
Yes. So tell me, I'm going to get you some more water, Bruce, but tell me how long, like, for example, if you're going to add bird detect to it, so let's say you've got a Z63 and it's released firmware 1, but it was in the development cycle before bird detect was standard for them. So how long would it take to add it into, the current Gold Master?
Yeah, but not long if it exists elsewhere with a similar instruction set on the SoC.
Yes.
Single chip that they're using. Not long at all.
So bird detect was existing on Z8 and Z9, 45 megapixel sensors. It hadn't existed on any of their 24 megapixel sensors. Does that make it harder because it's probably different?
I would think not a lot, because I think I would have thought most of the work was in the initial detection system in the first place.
Yeah.
But you've also got to consider that these companies have got priorities in the development of software.
Yeah.
Right, and that's probably what it is. There's only a set number of developers.
Yep.
And then they're expensive and all the rest.
Yep.
I understand that.
And they're working on 10 different cameras at once. In
that's
the case
exactly
of Nikon, I think we're up to 12 Z cameras now.
Yeah.
Let alone they still support some of their DSLRs.
Oh, some of their DSLRs. Yeah. But I think the issue with Nikon is that it's about that camera there. It's about essentially when you've got a unified team working on firmware that you've got for stills and video, etc., you get a greater return for your particular investment or whatever. So I actually think that camera is very important for software development.
And Bruce is pointing at the ZR.
Can
you explain what you're thinking there, Bruce, about?
Well, I mean, if let's say you're red and you're all by yourself. Well, you know, you've only got a very small number of cameras to amortize those software developers over.
Gotcha.
And if you're Leica, for instance, not too many people buy one of these things. And the M is absolutely unique. So the truth is, the M is riddled with software bugs initially, simply because there's not a lot of things to amortize that particular work over. It takes some time. But when it comes to a company like Nikon, who've got so many other models, particularly if you bring movies, etc., into an otherwise really a still platform, then you amortize those things and you can see the benefits that Red brings.
Yeah.
And I can definitely see that. Obviously, Sony and Canon saw it many years before that, right? And now it brings Nikon with a very competitive offering.
Yeah, I mean, have you spent much time getting across the ZR, considering video is not your core love?
No, as a matter of fact, there's no video involved here. It's a feature.
Yeah.
I don't shoot it at all nowadays. No. But look, we're going to get to the situation with, beyond 12K and all the rest. In the end, I think you're all going to shoot 12K and just rip the frame out of it, you know? Yeah.
Well, the problem with that is file sizes. So,
yes.
and I'm not sure if anyone's going to invent algorithms that can compress even harder, unless AI can somehow, and as processors get faster and faster, they can extrapolate a frame on the fly from minimal data. I could probably see a world where that happens, but I feel like that's a generation. And when I say generation, I mean of people, not of cameras. 10 or 20 years.
Yeah,
but can you imagine that? It sort of has a seed frame, like you give it the information of this scene, and then it basically has very little information, and it's interpolating on, it's AIing on, which would be horrifying. I actually still want the real information recorded.
It would, but I think we're kind of neglecting something here, right?
Right.
All these cameras, even the Leica, right, have their system on a chip.
Yep.
They don't publish really what the nanometer number is, or various other things. But when you look at it, you can see that these cameras lag significantly behind an iPhone.
Absolutely.
Right? Now, next year's iPhone is rumoured to be at 2 nanometers.
Yeah.
2.
Yeah.
Now, we were considering only a few years ago that we couldn't go below about 7 or 8 or whatever because silicon wouldn't allow this and all the rest.
Yeah.
Now we're looking at 2. Now, once you translate that into the chips and memory that is in all of these particular cameras, the heat drops dramatically.
Power consumption.
Right? The memory size increases dramatically. Now, another thing I'm going to ask Nikon users, etc., here, and things. There's one thing that this camera has that I think that's virtually unique in 35 millimeters: internal memory. Now, Hasselblad certainly has that, etc., in medium format. Do you know how useful even a little bit of internal memory is? It's extraordinarily useful.
It's magic. And what's interesting is with the ZF and now with the ZR, they've got this micro SD slot, which is essentially internal memory.
I was looking at that thinking, how long before you can't even get anything out of it and it's internal?
Well, my point about that is you can update your internal memory yourself, and when the internal memory fails, you can update it.
You can, but it's not as fast.
No, but you don't need it to be fast on that, and I don't need it to be fast. Like, what's amazed me about the ZR is that you could still record 5.4K 10-bit video on that SD card. So it'll still let you do, it won't let you do RAW, of course. You've got your Type B card for that. But 5.4 is still very... is basically what the majority of people are probably using.
Yeah.
You're doing that on and it's a Type 1 SD card. It's not even a Type 2.
Yeah, that's one of the things I've noticed is that, I've got Type B cards, I've got Sony Type A cards and all the rest. But then, I said I didn't shoot video. Yeah, come on. When you go on a holiday, you've got to, haven't you?
You've got to, yeah.
Right? You've got to. But the truth is that I've never... The SD cards, both of these machines are SD. They're running V60 cards right now. I've never had a problem.
No.
Right? I mean,
Look, the industry's had to upgrade cards again to sell stuff, but I'm I've got a few V90s. The only advantage to them is the downloading, not
Oh yeah,
not
yeah,
really
that's
that.
true. Yeah, that's true. Have you seen the price difference between V60s and V90 SD cards?
I
though?
I haven't.
Come on, you just gotta go have a look at it. It's just, it's. I bet you the V90s and the V60s are the same, except you on the wafer. Some of them are a little better than another, and whatever.
Yeah, that's
It's
right.
a complete take. It really
yeah.
is.
Well, it's interesting to me that CF Express Type B cards are now cheaper
Oh,
than expensive SD cards.
oh yeah,
which
they
is,
are, and
which
so
is
are A's,
phenomenal.
by the way.
Yeah, and A's are becoming really affordable as well.
That's
Yeah.
right. I mean, if you buy them directly from China and all the rest, I mean, I'm getting them in Australian dollars for way less than the US prices. I mean, way less,
Well,
right?
They've got a tariff issue
Yeah,
right
that's
now.
right. I mean, you know, I don't erase them.
Oh, you never erase a card?
No.
Not one.
What's the point?
How many cards? How many cards do you have?
They're only
Bruce?
this big. They last for ages, right?
So that is your backing up.
Well, I just erase pictures that I don't like and all the rest, right? With the Fujis are obviously the big Fuji is Type B card. It's, you know, it's almost throwaway cost.
Yeah, I understand, but that's I didn't realise that you basically once usage.
I just buy another one.
Yeah.
Right. I just buy another one. Temu, deliver, Amazon, boom. That's it.
Yeah, for sure. Yes, so we've sidetracked onto cards, and we were talking about the ZR, we're talking about firmware, and we're talking about the Z9. Now, I wanted to touch on the fact that the ZF 3.0 firmware came out, and then, of course, every time some firmware comes out for any other camera except the Z9, there is a certain group of people who say that Nikon's abandoned them, which firstly I find the language interesting in the sense of,
so emotional.
are you like an abandoned child, like an abandoned dog? I don't understand being abandoned, because the last firmware update that Z9 users got was in April,
Well,
which was 5.2, and then before that it was 5.1 in November, under a year ago. And if we were to get a major firmware update per annum, that would be impressive, don't you think?
Oh, yeah.
And the next one would be 6. And the camera's 4 years old, which means we've gone faster than 1 per annum.
Well, yeah, look, I mean...
As a non-Z person, how do you feel about this reaction?
I don't understand it. I don't. The Z9 and the Z8 after it, etc. They are the benchmarks in firmware. That's actually useful rather than fixes. I don't know how anyone could feel abandoned, right? Now, if anyone wants to feel abandoned, the original Sony A1 user, you're abandoned, right?
Yes.
You had to scream for 4 years to get something that the basic 24 megapixel cameras had, and now you're getting a little bit of them now. So yes, Sony's playing catch up in this particular area. The Z9's the benchmark. Now, the other problem, though, with the Z9 is, what actually do we actually need from it?
Yes.
I would only like the one thing which it probably can't deliver, which is raw pre-capture.
Yeah, it's unknown whether it's physically possible or not, and whether Nikon's whole XP 7 pipeline is just not capable of it.
And that's probably correct.
Because none of them do it.
That's right. So if you have a use case that needs that, okay, the A1-2 is supreme here. How many people do?
Yeah, well, we have JPEG, and we have JPEG in many different formats and speeds. So it does have pre-capture, but not in RAW.
That's right. And remember, it was the first of its type in the high end to have these things.
Yes.
Right. So, I wouldn't hesitate in buying a used Z9 or Z8. And all I can say is if people are that dissatisfied, sell it to me for a discounted price. I'll have it. Thank you very much.
The one thing that people are, I would say, sort of legitimately frustrated by is things like pixel shift has come to almost every other camera. But the thing and nobody knows the answer to this, and I'm not trying to defend it. I just like to apply logic. The Z9 was announced October 2020. The Z8 was almost 2 years, like 20 months later. there's no guarantee that they have an identical IBIS unit, and there's no guarantee that Nikon weren't thinking about. They may not have been thinking about pixel shift when the Z9. Like, we just don't know. Now, I would like to think that software could, do those little pixel movements, but we just don't know. Another conversation that's had is, does the Z9 have the same internal RAM to have the expanded code? And one way to look at this is to actually look at the size of the firmware when we download it. And I will double check this, but I believe
that's very useful. Yeah.
I believe the ZF firmware that I just downloaded, the 3.0, was like 120 meg, whereas the latest Z9 was like 90 meg. Now I will double check that, but that's telling us some things about the size of the code.
But I got another thing to do with that, right? How many people use all the firmware functions that they're actually given?
Yeah, that's true.
Wouldn't it be nice to be able to choose what to add and delete?
Well, that would be that would be next level.
Now, the next level says is that if you are suffering a problem with your RAM or whatever, use a selectable. I mean, your Windows or your Mac machine, you don't necessarily use that driver, do you?
Well, it's like our phones. We just install and uninstall apps. If you thought about each of these features as an app, but that's next level. That's when cameras go next level. At the end of the day, RAM should be pretty affordable, and you'd just like to think that you
would think so.
I'm sure it's the highest quality, fastest speed. Like, it will be amazing RAM because it has to function at its full level for the lifetime of the camera, which could exceed 25 years. Well, so they are buying best-in-class RAM, no question.
That's right. But for my mind, the question is, how long can you essentially use these systems on a chip in these cameras with boutique operating systems before you get enough speed there to use something that's like televisions, more generic, that you can get more developers for and things like that. That's number one. Number two, the other issue is the sensors themselves. The sensors have been relatively stable in their abilities for many years now.
They have.
Particularly the sensor in here and the sensor in here, other than probably mapping PDAF sensors out particularly the same one way or another. We know that the area for improvements is multi-layers, right, behind the system. So how long before that happens? And with multi-layers, with more electronics on the bottom, there's a number of things one can do as far as noise, as far as readout speed is concerned, etc. And I see that along with a better system on a chip as being the next horizon.
Yeah, it's interesting. We've got F and CCD saying, please don't put Android on cameras. I don't think Bruce is specifically saying Android, but just a larger operating system.
Well, I mean, the only question there is that. The only question there is that what else would you use?
Yeah. Yeah, no, look, it's a fair point. And Bruce is a programmer, and
DR-DOS, Canon used DR-DOS for years. That's why you could hack their cameras.
Right. Is that where Green Lantern or whatever, Red Lantern? Remember that there was something there was a thing called something Lantern, which allowed you to get more features on your 5D Mark II. The thing that I would say most camera users don't think about is the fact that these are boutique pieces of software that are, when you think about the number of cameras that are sold, instead of it being on like 1 billion devices like iOS is, and they have to roll it out not just to the latest phone, the 17, but the iOS is, I think, legally supposed to work on 7 iterations back, which means it's on like 2 billion devices, whereas Nikon is selling 200,000 or 300,000 cameras a year.
Absolutely.
And I would not guarantee that the firmware is identical across. Like, I would say the core is identical, but the cameras have different features and different things that happen. So
I'd be interested to know what the comment is about Android. Why you don't want it? Is it because of the boot time, you think?
Yeah, so fan CCD, if you can share with us why you'd not like to see Android on cameras, that would be great. And thank you, Jason. Yes, he has told me that it was called Magic Lantern, the hack that you... And I can't remember exactly what it did. I think it added some different movie modes. But Jason, if you can let us know that would be cool. Raymond is saying, I refuse to update my Sony Android TV. Is that because it's going to break it, Ray? Like,
Well, I've got look. I have to tell you, I've got a number of Android devices related to television, and unfortunately, yes, I understand. But is that Android's fault or the programmer? I don't know. But anyway, yes, I understand that.
I mean, my only thought around Android, and I know nothing about Android, is how susceptible is it to malware and things like Windows. Like Windows has been very different to iOS when it comes to how many patches and how many bugs and how many attacks.
Look, the path length on these operating systems, the path length is longer, etc. We're already complaining about the boot up speed or whatever. The point is that it's, I don't know the answers, but if you're looking for an answer for how to get firmware out there faster, which is what the question was,
yeah,
then going to an operating system that's more known and for more developers is currently the way to do those things.
Yeah, it's very cool.
And these system on a chips, I'm looking for a dramatic improvement in their speed. I mean, by the way, we started with Leica, but one of the first things in the announcement is, of course, it has the same Maestro processor as this camera had in early 2022, and we're almost in 2026.
Wow.
Now, if you look at an iPhone between those two dates...
Yeah, it iterates every year.
That's right. And you've got to consider this issue, right? And that these machines are in lower volume and they're very much slower to update.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, the development cost of a new chip would be astonishing. And the reason why we might see, for example, the XP to 8 after, let's call it 6 years, from Z9 to Z9, is because, they need to put it in 2 million cameras to get a return on it, because it probably costs $100 million plus to develop it. Like, we just don't know, right?
Well, your question was really based around why pixel shift doesn't occur on certain Nikon models.
Yeah, well,
right?
just the Z9 at the moment.
At the moment. I think...
And it's the oldest, XP7.
And look, Sony's had pixel shift for way older than the Z9 was.
Mm-hmm.
How many of you use it? Come on.
Yeah, let us know in the comments.
How many of you actually use it in production?
Well, so Joe made a comment. I used to crave pixel shift for the Z9, but it's simply not needed. It's already high res. It's already a high res camera. So thank you for that honest answer, Joe. And I think you both are making a great point. And
you're speaking to a pixel shift user, by the way.
Yeah.
There's only really one use for pixel shift, and it's in medium format, and that is color accuracy.
Look, it's still nice to have it, but again, neither have I. Like, I've used it as part of the channel to share with how it works, but have I yet had a use case? Now, I might if I'm shooting a landscape, maybe, or a cityscape, but the quality, I think probably one thing that's making pixel shift less relevant is that you can just jump into Photoshop or whatever, and you can say AI enlargement. And if you only do a one time, so you just simply double the size, the quality of those enlargements is extraordinary. So suddenly my 8,500 pixel file out of my Z8 or Z9 is suddenly a 17,000 pixel wide file. I don't need more.
No, but you see, but unfortunately, there's two types of pixel shift here, though.
Yep.
Right.
Oops,
and
wrong
we need to consider pixel shift for upping resolution. I consider to be completely and utterly worthless. Right. In all scenarios. And it's very doubtful whether it actually produces greater spatial resolution.
Yeah.
However, four-shot pixel shift, which essentially gets rid of the Bayer matrix, is of great use for fine art. Yeah. And that is why, in the case of particularly the Fuji with its 4:3 format, its ability to do pixel shift, particularly remote pixel shift on something that doesn't move, really makes a difference in the deep reds and the deep blues. It does make a difference there.
Yep.
But that is the only use case I can find for it.
Yep. And Joe's saying instead of pixel shift, I shoot multiple shots with the 135 and I stitch them together.
Yeah,
So
that's right. That'll produce way better resolution. There's no question about that,
yeah,
right?
so that's another way to do it. I just wanted to...
By the way, that's why I use this a lot, because it's tiny and you just shoot it around all over the place and stitch it together and you can get this massive result.
It's amazing how Photoshop can put together some pretty like random shooting now
Oh, yeah,
for you.
absolutely.
It's very impressive. Mookie has just said Magic Lantern added manual audio levels, headphone monitoring.
That's right.
Crop marks, zebras for exposure, among other things. And we're talking probably 2008 or something. So
Yeah,
that was
that's right.
So was Canon still? What did you say? It was DOS.
DR DOS. The original Canons were DR DOS.
Yeah.
I don't know what point they changed.
What is DR DOS? Is that a derivative of Microsoft DOS or MS DOS or?
Yeah.
Okay, very good.
Well, because you got to remember, Microsoft goes all the way back to DOS. Microsoft didn't invent it.
No, that's true.
That's right.
I remember reading about that. He just stole it, or
well, IBM had it too, right?
Yeah.
So
I mean, DOS just means disk operating system, and then they all made their variant.
Right. But
King Kirk is saying, can we please get the 44 by 33 sensor for Z mount? So this was something.
Yeah, actually, look, me too, right?
Yeah, I want that badly.
That's right. That sensor is the absolute jewel in the crown, right?
Yeah.
That is really good, and because it's a 4.3, and it's the same family as both of these with the same pixel densities and all the rest. But by God, in the Fuji, I mean, you can walk up and you shoot everything at 3,200 ISO, and it's like its noise doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's just beautiful, that thing.
Yeah, well, you got some magnificent shots out of the aeroplane a few months ago, and they were shot at the high ISOs. So
I'm not sure we even brought them.
No, not this time around, but we saw them in the last live stream, which you should go and check out, everybody. And yes, even at 3,200 ISO, the Fuji wasn't struggling at all.
Yeah, that's right. Look, we always looked at the Z mount and said, you could pick a bigger sensor there. It's still the case.
Yes. Paul says thank you to Bruce for explaining pixel shift color rendition. And CSC photo, pixel shift for reproduction art, etc. and static macro is great. Would like to try for Astro, but I also love stitching. Do you reckon it would work for Astro? It depends how quick your exposure is. So you can... I think
you'd find that the equatorial mount and the
rotation.
Well, you've got an equatorial mount, and if it's really good, it wouldn't do that. But when you actually look at the atmospheric issues, pixel shift is extraordinarily touchy. Like, for instance, unless you are exposing on a concrete floor, right, you're going to have when you try to match things up, the software just says no.
Yeah. And
the Sony and Olympus do have the ability to tolerate moving objects and things like that. But I've found in reality this is not the silver bullet that you expect.
Yeah.
But for fine art, yeah, absolutely.
CSC is saying, and now we can combine pixel shift with bracketing and focus shift. Maybe not practical, but another cool thing to have. I agree with that.
Yeah, now that's another issue. Combining bracketing with focus shift. I would love to be able to have that on any of the cameras, because that is something that you actually, it's a real world thing.
Well, it gives you larger dynamic range.
And in macro work, you actually get quite a lot of that. Now, I shoot quite a lot of shells close up, and if you shoot a shell, it's a three-dimensional object. And so when Sony went to focus stacking, by the way, one of the last companies to do it, it was a huge step forward. But one of the problems is you get specular highlights doing that sort of thing. And it would be nice to be able to do the bracket and the shoot, etc., etc. So yeah, I get it.
Yeah, and and now CSC is saying he would like the firmware update to have pixel shift when you're handheld, like with, I mean, so the
like Olympus.
Well, and Lumix have done it, but I haven't actually tested it.
Well, it's a patent, right?
Oh,
right.
Is it?
It's a patent,
Oh.
And Sony's has limited moving ability when you use a computer to do that.
Right.
I've tested that. Good luck.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
You've got to be pretty stable with it.
Yeah.
Well, Bruce, I don't know if you realise, but we've almost gone for an hour and a half. Is there anything else you wanted to chat about before we hit the road and go and have a coffee?
No, other than
Should we show everybody the cathedral?
yeah.
Okay, let me go grab that. Whoops, I've just pressed
Sagrada
the wrong
Família.
button. We don't want. Oh, there we go.
You put us off air, have you?
No, I didn't, but I got a close up of me from my laptop. That's not good. Nobody wants to see that.
No, okay, fair enough. Now we make these things up in mats so that we don't have gloss on the marker and all the rest. But that's sideways. So you can have it either way.
Can we do it that way? Just because.
Right. Anyone out there been to Barcelona?
Yeah, let us know if you've been to Barcelona and to this particular chapel. Cathedral. Sorry.
Cathedral. It's probably the finest piece of architecture of its type on planet Earth.
There it is.
Gaudi's masterpiece. Right.
You can't see it that well. Let me get the camera to pull focus on it.
Now this is one thing that Leicas cannot do because they do not have super wide angle lenses that are fast in aperture, because these things are dark. You've got to use a tripod, and of course in the middle of Sagrada you can't use a tripod because of all the people around. But look at that.
I'll hold it up a bit. So tell us what
you look, and if you look at the corners, this is a Sony 14mm G Master, and it's not wide open, but it's close to wide open, which is a 1.8. But you're dealing with absolutely horrible dynamic range problems because to the eye you can hardly see it. And you've
just
got
down a little bit with the image. Down. Yeah, perfect.
And you've got the horrible problem of having to hand hold it, having high ISO, having monstrous dynamic range problems because you've got glass and all the rest, and having shadows and all the rest, and having people buffet you all the time.
Can you tell us what the metadata is on that? What's the ISO and shutter and
1000
and shutter speed?
45th.
And f-stops?
That one is between 2.8 and 4.
Yeah, cool.
Out of this.
Yeah, out of that, absolutely. I mean, it's 61 megapixels,
and that is the full frame.
And it's very, very sharp. There's so much detail.
When you go into the corner of things that are close, though, which is down on the left,
that is soft.
You'll see it'll go soft.
Yeah.
And in reality, because you'll see it doesn't go soft here, though.
Right.
And the reality is because you're actually sitting on that post.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Right.
And there's a bit of distortion there as well, but it's beautiful.
And anyway, so this is, and by the way, this distortion isn't corrected down there. There's a very good reason for it. Distortion correction actually will soften the image in your corners as well.
Yeah.
So, you only do it if you actually have to do it.
Yeah.
So there you go. And that's what modern technology, if you think about it, tiny little camera, what it can possibly deliver.
What we're capable of achieving. You can pop that down now if you want, David. Thank you. What's capable of happening today is extraordinary.
It is indeed.
Extraordinary.
Yeah, indeed it is. We live in a very fortunate world.
I mean, considering where I started my photography journey, and it was film with a hell of a lot of grain and drying marks, and the quality.
You remember the drying marks
and the scratches and everything else under the sun. And I'm just going to get that camera back to face detect over there. But things have changed a lot, Bruce, haven't they?
They have indeed.
They've changed so much. And what would you like to see come to your next camera technology-wise? We know what you want from...
well, I know what I want from Leica.
Leica. What about some other manufacturers?
Well, actually, I hate to say, I'd like all the Nikon manual focusing aids on all the Sony bodies.
Nice.
Particularly the A1 the Flagship, right?
Yeah.
I would like to see that, and on the next A7R, right? Because I don't know what else they can do, really. I mean, you're dealing with a sensor that's, it's slow, but we don't necessarily want it to shoot sport. Well, in 10 frames per second on a mechanical shutter's, good enough. But no, I want to see all those Nikon things on the Sony system, and I want to be able to use other people's manual glass on that system.
Yeah, yeah, cool. Well, you've got both Ray and Joe saying, "Nice shot, Bruce. Well done." They're liking your work, both Ray and Joe. So thank you very much, Ray and Joe. Well, Bruce, thank you for sharing your Leica journey. Thank you for sharing your honest thoughts on the Leica M EV1. And I think Bruce and many others have fingers crossed for an M12 with IBIS and real focus aids.
Oh, absolutely. But if not, you're going to spend all that money, buy a Safari, because it'll be worth it.
It is a beautiful shade of green. All right, everybody. Well, I would love to thank you all very much for joining us today for a different type of episode. It's always great to keep changing things up. Please let us know if you're watching the non-live coverage, what you think about the different types of episodes. Share with us your thoughts on firmware, the Leica EV1, the Sony A7CR, and all the other things that we've talked about today. We will look forward to having Bruce come back soon, because we've got some framing and printing and exciting things to talk about, don't we, Bruce?
Well, I think the Tech Art adapter.
Oh, the Tech Art adapter. Yeah. No worries. Thanks, everybody, for being here. It's been absolutely fantastic, and I should be able to get back into regular program. Last week, I have to say that last Friday, Joe and I did an amazing thing. We went for a swim in the ocean when it was freezing cold. That was the thing that I needed to do last Friday. And Joe, again, to repeat what I said earlier in this stream, we're all sending you our love and our best wishes for the journey ahead. All right. Thank you so much, Bruce.
Thanks, Matt.
And we will see you all very soon. Okay.